This is a pretty cynical take, but it kind of hits a little too close to home, doesn't it? We're all told to follow this long, expensive path to get smart, but a lot of the time it just doesn't feel like it pays off. But what if that whole idea is just wrong? What if getting smarter in a way that actually helps you in the real world is way easier than we've all been led to believe? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down. All right, so first things first, we have to cut through all the noise out there. The internet is just flooded with so-called advice that sounds good, but honestly, it completely misses the point. It's what you could call the smart trap. I am sure you have seen lists just like this. Eat more blueberries, listen to Mozart, get exactly 8 hours of sleep. And hey, look, none of these things are bad for you, but they're all totally passive. They're just tiny tweaks that conveniently ignore the one thing you actually have to do. Because at the end of the day, all the superfoods and classical music in the world don't mean a thing if you're not actively, well, learning stuff. That's it. That's the real hack. So, where do we start? Well, it begins with the foundation, getting new information in your head. And the best way to do that for centuries has been to read. But there's a second part that's just as important, and that's learning how to share what you know. And this part is so crucial. Being truly smart isn't about winning an argument or proving you know more than someone else. It's about sharing information in a way that makes people interested, not defensive. It's less of an intellectual skill and, more of a social one. This comparison just says it all, right? The second you hear someone say, well, actually, you just know they're about to be annoying. But if someone starts with, it is crazy, right? You're immediately on their side. One way makes you sound like a know-it-all, the other makes you sound like a genuinely interesting person who's sharing something cool. Okay, so you've read something, you've learned something new. Now we get to the most important part of this whole thing. How do you actually make it stick in your brain? This is where you have to fire up what we'll call the active learning engine. And really, it all just boils down to this super simple two-step process. Step 1, you absorb the info. But step 2 is the absolute game changer. You have to give your brain a reason to care. See, our brains are incredibly efficient machines. If they think a piece of information is useless, guess what? They just toss it out. I mean, this quote just nails it, doesn't it? You can watch a million YouTube videos on how to tie a tie, but until you actually have that tie in your hands, fumbling around with it, that knowledge is completely abstract. It's useless. Exactly. The real learning happens while you're doing the thing. You don't just watch, you watch and do. A book about getting organized is just a bunch of words until you actually use its ideas to clean up your messy room. Okay, that makes sense. But what about all the stuff you can't practice right away? Like chances are, you don't have 2 cars handy to practice jump-starting a dead battery. So what do you do then? Well, this is where mental visualization comes into play. It is by far the next best thing to actually doing something. By creating this really detailed simulation inside your head, you can basically trick your brain into thinking that this information has already been super useful. Let's go back to that car battery example. So you read the steps, then you close your eyes and you picture it. It's late, it's raining, your car is dead. You pop the hood, you see the red and black terminals. You imagine connecting the clamps in the right order. By running that whole movie in your head, you're building the exact same connections in your brain that you would if you were doing it for real. Now, this whole idea of creating a situation just to make information seem useful, it might sound a little familiar. That's because it's the secret principle hiding in plain sight behind our entire education system. I mean, think about it. What is an exam? It's just an imaginary situation. The teacher creates a scenario, a test, where some random historical date is, for that 1 hour, the most useful piece of information in the entire world. The pressure of getting a good grade forces your brain to go find it. This is exactly why just rereading your notes over and over is one of the worst ways to study. You can see it right here, it's so low. Repetition is a little better, sure, but practice questions, they're just off the charts. So why is that? Well, it's because practice questions are the ultimate simulation. They're not passive. They force you to retrieve that information and actually apply it, which perfectly mimics how you'd use it in a real-world scenario. They give your brain the exact reason it needs to hold on to that info. And what's wild is that all of this leads to a pretty surprising conclusion. In this age of flashy videos and quick articles, the boring old-school textbook is still the absolute S-tier tool for getting smart fast. And why is that? It's because they give you pure information immediately followed by practice questions. It's the perfect 1-2 punch for real learning. So just forget about all those weird, mystical brain hacks. Getting smarter really is this simple. It's a 2-step process. Learn something new, and then immediately make it useful to your brain, either by practicing it for real or just practicing it in your mind. That's the whole game. That's the entire framework right there. So I guess the only question left for you is this. What new skill or what new piece of information are you going to make useful to your brain today?